So, Dylan here. I've done videos on how Jesus makes the yoke light, and I've done videos on how the Holy Spirit makes the yoke light. And then I've summarized it, right? But what do we do when the yoke doesn't feel like it's light? Right? Like we know it is, but we don't feel like it is. So let's cover a couple topics, right? This isn't everything, but this is a good chunk, you know? So I'll break it down into different perspectives. Okay? So, when the yoke doesn't feel light and the burden isn't lifting, and it makes you ask, did I misunderstand God? Did I miss something? Did I go wrong somewhere? Did I make a wrong turn? Is He really with me? Well, let's break it open, right? Jesus says, come to me, but in perspective, of course. But where is He? Jesus starts His promise with an invitation. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened and heavy laden, right? But when you're already coming to Him and you're still burdened, it can start to maybe, in your perspective, maybe you feel like He's gaslighting, like you're showing up to the place of rest, but the door's locked. Well, a couple things. He doesn't do that. He just doesn't gaslight people. It could be something else going on there, right? Maybe you're yoked to something you shouldn't be, or something else, right? He doesn't gaslight, He doesn't lie, He doesn't mislead. It's not what He does. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? Remember that. So, but what if it's in these moments? The moments where we're frozen because we just can't move anymore because the weight is just too much. What if that's the moment where He's not just inviting you into His presence, but us into His perspective? Maybe. What if the lightness He speaks of isn't just only relief, but release of control, of expectations, of self-sufficiency, of the fact that, we can just do it on our own, we can just soldier through, right? We just got to dig our heels in and just push a little further. What if it's not about our works, but His? Right? God doesn't always remove the fire. He joins us in it. Remember, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were in the fire, right? God didn't spare them the fire. He entered it with them. That burden you're carrying may not be removed, but it may be exactly the place where His presence becomes undeniable. Sometimes the proof of God's faithfulness isn't in what He fixes, but in what doesn't break you when it should have. Let that sink in. God's faithfulness isn't in what He fixes, but in what doesn't break you when it should have. That's bars for a Monday, ain't it? When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, for I am the Lord your God, or so it is said in Isaiah 43, 2-3, right? What if the yoke is light, but your soul is just exhausted? What if you're so worn down, not just from one burden, but from years of carrying things that even a light yoke feels heavy? God doesn't shame that. He sees the layers, the traumas, the pressure, the disappointments, the expectations, and He wants to untangle them slowly and gently. You see, when we untangle wires in a rush, what happens is oftentimes we end up fraying the cords. We end up damaging them. They end up becoming defective cords, right? So what He does is He knows these things. He knows that certain traumas, certain expectations, certain disappointments, certain burdens that we have has to be untangled slowly and gently, right? Because real healing takes time. Often pain shows up first before peace settles in, right? That's just the way it is. Maybe you might not be the one who needs to move. Sometimes it's not about you needing to try harder, you pushing forward one step at a time. Maybe the system you're in is broken. The expectations around you are unfair. The spiritual culture you've known too shallow. Jesus didn't come to put more religious weight on you. He came to set you free from it. So if his yoke doesn't feel light, maybe it's because what you're yoked to isn't him. Think about that. I'm going to repeat that one more time. So if his yoke doesn't feel light, maybe it's because what you're yoked to isn't him. Maybe what we're yoked to is to our burdens. Maybe what we're yoked to is our own expectations and self-sufficiency. Maybe what we think we're yoked to is actually us. Or maybe it's a bad habit. Or maybe it's something else that we're given power that we shouldn't, I'll think about that. If his yoke doesn't feel light, maybe it's because what you're yoked to isn't him. That one hits. It hits. Right? We've got more. Don't go nowhere. So what is the weight you're carrying right now? Think about that. What do you need the yoke to be? Some things to take throughout your week, What is the weight you're carrying right now? What do you need the yoke to be, and how do you release the yoke? So let's talk about how you can release the yoke. If you have a vivid mind like me, it might be easier to picture yourself at the cross, picking up that heavy backpack of yours, taking it off, laying it down in front of the cross, and asking God to please accept this sacrifice. Because sometimes he will take the things we don't want as a sacrifice. There's honor in asking for help. There's honor in asking for a team lift. And if we don't know how to give it up at the cross, that's okay. We can ask him to teach us. We can ask him, hey, please help me lift this burden. And I know you probably have a million times before, but some other perspectives, like we said in the video, maybe what you're yoked to isn't him and you're yoked to the burden. Maybe you're not actually trying to release it to him and you're still trying to handle it all on yourself. Remember, you're not in this fight alone. Okay? Like I said, in the worldly sense, asking for help is weakness. But in the godly sense, asking for help is honor, right? Asking him for a team lift, it's honor in his eyes, So maybe ask him to show you how to release that yoke, So again, I'll leave this message with you. What is the weight you're carrying right now? And what do you need the yoke to be? Think about it. See you next time.